I don't think this is a summit where you're going to see a lot of forward progress. These two governments are miles apart in the issues, and sometimes that's going to be fine. You're going to argue your differences. Although with President Trump, you never know because he's in this Orwellian frame of mind. He spent the last week attacking our allies, Merkel, May, NATO, the EU, and he's been very kind to Putin. I thought it was a missed opportunity at that photo spray at the beginning in Helsinki. The president should have raised our differences, Crimea, the nerve agent attack on the United Kingdom, and definitely the grand jury indictment of 12 of Putin's military intelligence officers. Diplomacy is not just about being nice to people. It's about getting your way, protecting the United States. And so I'm hopeful that we'll hear some positive news about progress, perhaps on strategic nuclear weapons, agreements to go back to look at intermediate range nuclear weapons. These two countries have to provide for the nuclear stability. But I think on the other issues, I'm afraid the president's been too weak, too passive. He'll give way to Putin, so I'm worried about the outcome.
The president mentioned China specifically and President Xi. What theoretically could be done on that front as at least the market pays attention to whether or not this $200 billion in tariffs goes through?
You know, a little unclear what the president meant. He may have meant that Russia needs to join the United States and China in trying to leverage North Korea on the nuclear weapons side. I don't see that Russia has a lot to do with a U.S.-China trade situation. Russia's a very small economy, as you've just been talking about. It may also be that President Trump feels that these are the three top leaders in the world. He kind of has a great man theory of politics.
Well, Mr. Ambassador Jim Cramer, couldn't you argue that only President Trump makes it so that they're the top three leaders and that what we kind of had post the bipolar world was a Russia that was reduced to just being a small disruptive force? And then because of just mutual discussions going to see Putin, Putin has been seriously elevated by the President of the United States.
I agree with you, Jim. If you're going to have this meeting, and you've got to have a channel between these two leaders, we have to be clear about the differences between us. There's really no American impetus here to have progress. We want to draw some red lines in front of Putin. Don't invade our elections again. No more cyber attacks. If you launch a cyber attack on our election, there'll be consequences. That's the kind of discussion that there should be. I'm not sure the president's tough enough to have that kind of discussion with Putin. So if our president isn't going to be strong, this is going to be a missed opportunity. And Putin could perceive that the United States is weak itself.
Ambassador, specific to the format here of these discussions with no note taker, just the two of them, and translators, is that unlike anything you've seen in the past? I just wonder what we're actually going to get out of it in terms of what really was said.
Right. You almost always want to have a record, particularly if you're meeting with an adversary. I worked for both Presidents Bush, President Clinton. We always had a note taker in the room because you don't want the Russians to come back to us 2 months from now and say Trump committed to do X when he didn't commit that. The Russians are going to lie and cheat, and they're going to twist the logic of what happened. And so John Bolton or Mike Pompeo, Secretary Pompeo, ought to be in the room, probably John Bolton, taking verbatim notes of what happened. You want that record. So I think it is a mistake.
President did tweet that our relationship has never been worse, thanks to many years of U.S. foolishness and stupidity, and now the rigged witch hunt. This morning, Ambassador, the Russian Foreign Ministry retweets that and says, "We agree." Does that tell us anything about what the meeting might be like?
You know, I must say, this was a surreal experience to see that exchange. For President Trump to blame the United States, to blame President Bush, President Clinton, President Obama, that's just plain wrong. It's Orwellian logic. It's twisted. It doesn't make any sense. And for the Russian Foreign Ministry to be agreeing with President Trump that we, America, we're the problem, that's not the case. That's not the truth. So I think he just walked in to a Russian trap this morning, incredibly unwise, I would say even ignorant of the president, to be blaming the United States for our problems with Russia. Imagine what Ronald Reagan would think of that, what George H.W. Bush thinks of that, what any American president thinks of this. Our presidents have never acted this way. We've always been proud of our country. We defend our country. We don't blame our country in front of a meeting with President Putin.
Hey there, thanks for checking out CNBC on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on all of the day's biggest stories. You can also click on any of the videos around me to watch the latest from CNBC. Thanks for watching.